And we're back to learning JavaScript. Let me give you the three main types of variables. We've already introduced the let in our last example, and then we've used these two variables and printed it out on the screen. When you have a let, you can basically reselect this variable and then give it a new value. So if I use first name again, which was our first variable, we would change the first name Klaus to Sarah, but Müller will stay the same. So if I print this out yet again, we will have Klaus Müller first and then Sarah Müller. This is what you can do with a let, and keep in mind here we don't have to add a let again in this code line, because if you add let and then a name, you declare a variable and you only have to do that once. You can give it different values all the time, no problem, but only declare it once, so we can omit the let here. If we add it, we actually get an error and it's not going to get printed anymore. Now let us check the second type, which is a const. And in our case, this would fit to Müller, as this is a variable that keeps its value. So the value is constant, and therefore this still runs. And good practice is to always use a const when you can. So this would be the first to choose if you don't change your values. But if you change your values, you have to use a let. So use a let when a const doesn't fit, and always use a const when you can. It's like the general rule for declaring these variables. And there's also a third type, which is the var. This is the original variable declaration type in JavaScript. You can use that for numbers and text elements as well. So if I print this out with another name, I just call this new variable. We can see that as well. But as I've mentioned, it's the original variable type. And I believe in 2015 or something, JavaScript added let and const as variable types. And since then, it's good practice to not use the variable anymore. But when you know you are dealing with an old browser, then you should use the var, the variable type, to declare your variables. Because these old browsers, they don't use JavaScript that knows let and const. So this is kind of like a side note. Good practice for new code. Always use the const when you can. Then use the let when you have to. And forget about the var type. But when you encounter it, you should just notice the old way of declaring variables. Obviously all of this works with numbers as well. So I'll give you an example with numbers. And by the way, if I use these slashes 2 times, this is called a comment in JavaScript. So everything added after it will not be visible in the browser window and will not affect your algorithm, your code. Let me add 2 variables of type const, number 1 and 2, and they add up right here if I print them. And I can change these numbers, but only in the original declaration lines. So if I try to adjust the value for number 1 right here, it's going to give me an error because I've used a const type, and as we've already learned, this can't be used on variables with a changing value. But if I make this a let now, you can see our code runs. So we have 22 and then 162. And that's all that I wanted to cover for now. As always, try it out yourself, but I think it's pretty easy to understand. I hope this video was helpful, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.